Hey y'all, how are you doing? I am great. Thank you so much for asking. So let's go ahead and talk about how social media is basically ruining us. In a video a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how Instagram has a homogenizing effect on our aesthetic preferences. And there I was talking about how we celebrate and fetishize mixed race people. But that's not the only way that Instagram is influencing our preferences and our desires and our self-esteem and our body image. Instagram is a blessing and a curse because on one hand, it allows those of us who've been historically marginalized to create our own images and distribute our own images and come together and celebrate each other like we see on the dark-skinned beauty pages or on the body posy pages. But on the other hand, we have to be real about the fact that women and girls who say that they use Instagram every day or for an hour a day, they self-report having higher levels of anxiety and lower self-esteem and body image. My hypothesis is that the rise of these social media platforms, in particular, the ones that are based on images like YouTube, like Instagram, like Snapchat, are actually a net negative for the mental health of women and girls. Even beyond the data that we already have of girls and women telling us I feel bad after I use Instagram, I really think it's much deeper than that. And I just pray in 5 years that we will get a comprehensive breakdown of what is going on, because I really do think that it's doing more harm than good. And we like to emphasize the good because it makes us feel better about our addiction. And I feel that way because we know how these companies engineer their products to keep us addicted. They engineer their products. Kara Swisher, whom I love, a tech journalist I love, calls it a slot sheen of attention. So we cannot let it go. But we're also seeing that self-harm and suicide among children and girls in particular is higher than ever in recorded history. Now, I don't think that that is a coincidence. And I think that those harms are especially pointed and especially detrimental for women and girls of color, people who are not white, because we face so many sets of pressures. So I already talked about, the baby hair ideal and the tan skin ideal, that mixed race aesthetic, but there's also a pressure to have a super curvy body. That curvy body ideal has gotten so extreme and so cartoonish. And I've talked about, the cartoonish way that bodies look now. And somebody said, oh, that's just black women's bodies. And I was like, no, it's not, girl. We are way past the point of just a normal black woman's body being the ideal look. I've been on social media for a long time. I've also been black my whole life, and I've been kind of thick since 2003. Okay. I have we'll say a shapely lower half. And when I was growing up, when I would look at the music videos, I was always impressed by the bodies of Buffy the Body or Kai Toy or girl, these are old school video girl names. Okay. Or Melissa Ford, or even Delicious before her original body. Delicious's first body. Those were the kinds of bodies I was like, oh, okay, you're super stacked. Now that is not, we're way past that. Now we're at an ideal with waist this big and hips this big, bodies that are absolutely not found in nature. Maybe 1% of the population naturally comes out like that. But no, that's just, it's not anything that you can achieve without getting surgery. And recently I found this Instagram account that shows the models and the rappers and the singers and the actresses before and after they got surgery. And yeah, they're definitely trying to shame those women. I'm not interested in shaming them. I do think it's super fascinating, and extreme is the only word that comes to mind, because how did we get here? How do we get to a point where the ideal is something that looks, and how do we get to this point where the beauty ideal is that When in my mind 10 years ago, I thought social media was going to be a magical place where we can all be celebrated and uplifted, and now we all have an opportunity to be the ideal. That's not true. A lot of positivists like myself have been completely debunked, because instead of social media and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube deconstructing those ideals, they actually reify the ideals, because they know what gets our likes, they know what gets our attention, and then the algorithm pushes that stuff forward. That's what's going to be on your explore page. And when I really think about it, I'm not super surprised, because Instagram has a financial interest in the replication of a certain kind of beauty. If that's what's going to make you money, then that's what you're going to push forward. I think Instagram, the market cap is like $100 billion, or is that the revenue? It's either the market cap or the revenue. It's an enormous amount of money, and these individual influencers are making a lot of money by embodying this ideal. So the ideal is not going to change until the financial incentives change. Obviously, people of all races are on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, less so. They're on YouTube, they're on all of these platforms. I zoom in on Black women because, according to the Pew Research Center, Black women are actually more likely than any other race to use Instagram. That makes perfect sense to me. We are looking for images, right? We've been shut out of movies and music and magazines for so long. I mean, that's kind of changing a little bit, but if you want to see Black people, it makes sense to me that you would be deeply invested in the Instagram. And, that's where we are. Images matter. Images are powerful. I'm 30 years old. I still want to see me. I still want to see Black girls with big noses and braids and big lips. Like, that's what I want to see. That's the content I'm looking for. We're all looking for representation, but we also all want to see beauty. Whatever beauty is to you, it makes us feel good. Those are the images that we're going to seek out. I don't think that Black women and our interactions with social media have been studied enough, because for so long, there has been this myth that Black women are impervious to having body image issues, that we just have a chronically high self-esteem. And a part of that is because in the survey data that we have so far, Black women do consistently self-report feeling better about our bodies than women of other races. We self-report feeling better in bigger bodies. And that leads researchers, who are most often white people, to say, oh, they're fine. Right? No eating disorders, no body dysmorphia, they're good. In fact, they say they're unhealthy. That's unhealthy because we're okay with having bigger bodies. I do believe the data, but I also am skeptical of some of those interpretations, because most of those researchers are white, but also because most of that data is not super new. The latest study that I found was from 2015. I would be super interested in, again, girl, I hope some social scientists watch me. Please do this work. I hope that people are assessing how Black women are feeling now, today, in 2019, because I don't think it's the same. In the data that we have, the gap between how Black women feel about our bodies and how white women feel about our bodies has been pretty significant. And a big part of that is because we have not internalized mainstream messaging about thin is in and thin is the ideal, and you gotta look like Pam Anderson. I don't know why Pam Anderson is at the forefront of my mind. That's a 20-year-old reference. Or you gotta look like Britney or whatever. Like, we have been able to create our own ideals within our communities. But I would bet $100 that gap is narrowing. I don't know any Black women, to be honest, who want to be thin, skinny. And that's just not how we operate in the world. But I know lots of Black women, and I've spoken to, I've seen, I've watched on YouTube, all kinds of Black women all across the diaspora who desire a different body shape, meaning thinner waist, bigger hips. so widespread. Big booties have always been in, 36, 24, 36. Go back to your mama's brick house. Go back to Baby Got Back. Like, there's always been, you know, the Coke bottle or whatever. And I will say, as a petite woman who has a certain kind of figure, I have benefited, you know, just to be honest, I have often benefited and gotten positive attention as well as some unwanted attention. But as an adult, positive attention for having a certain kind of body. But there is a point where things really started to go over the cliff. There's a tipping point where even I was like, oh, is my butt big enough? Oh, is my waist small enough? Like, that's where we are now. Where if you're just like a black girl who just happened to have a booty, now it's like, well, let me get the waist trainer. Let me get this booty pop panties. Let me get the butt enhancing cream. Let me try the laxative teas or whatever. And that's dangerous. Just anecdotally speaking, in the past decade, I've seen a huge uptick in the number of black women expressing severe and extreme dissatisfaction with their bodies. Women of all socioeconomic statuses, women of all walks of life say, I want a bigger booty, I want a smaller waist. And I do believe that that coincides with the rise of Instagram in the fall of 2010. And that's not to say that people did not get augmentations before 2010, but I don't think that you can really dispute that Instagram has a net negative effect on how we feel about ourselves moving through the world. We do see the rise of like the botched booty in, you know, the butt injections around like 2012, but in these past 9 years, the conversations that people have around their bodies, what sorts of bodies are considered ideal and normal, have absolutely changed. The kind of dysmorphia that I'm seeing in conversations is rampant and it's pervasive. It's a real cultural shift. And yeah, I blame social media. And I know I'm not making this up because I saw Dr. Miami, everybody's favorite plastic surgeon, on a talk show, I think it was the Wendy Williams show, saying that it's different.
The other interesting trend is, instead of people asking for celebrity booties, people used to come in with pictures of Nicki Minaj or Kim K. Now they're just coming in with their phones and picking out Instagram models.
It's a big
like
deal.
Erica Mena. Right. And they're saying, that's what I want to look like.
The kind of dysmorphia that women of color, black women, are dealing with is different. It is different because we do not subscribe to the thin ideal. So if you do subscribe to the thin ideal, then it's like, how do I get thinner? I diet, I purge, I over-exercise. But when you're trying to achieve the curvy ideal, you get surgery, you get a waist trainer. And I don't know if one is better or worse than the other. They're different, and it deserves equal attention. The rise of surgery is particularly interesting and particularly concerning. So last year in the United States, Americans spent $16.5 billion on cosmetic procedures, but cosmetic procedures includes everything from laser hair removal to rhinoplasty, right? Or even Botox is counted as a cosmetic procedure. Still, a lot of money. And I also thought it was interesting that from 2017 to 2018, there was a 20% rise in BBL or butt augmentation. That is the largest rise for any of the procedures that they track. And also, it was interesting to me that they don't even have numbers from 2000 when they first started doing this rundown, because those butt augmentation procedures were so rare. Now, like I said, I'm not really invested in making people feel bad about getting surgery. Do whatever you want with your body. We all do all kinds of stuff to make ourselves look better and feel good walking through the world, whatever. I really only care about it when people lie, and people lie a lot. Looking at the freaking Kardashians, Khloe Kardashian wants us to believe that she got that booty by doing fucking squats. No, girl. We have eyes. But anyways, those are the only people that I want to call out. I am, though, interested in, yeah, we all have the capacity to make choices and we all have agency, but we can't talk about choices and decision making without talking about the marketplace and the societal structures that push us toward certain choices. In 2019, if you spend any amount of time on social media or any amount of time consuming, Black-oriented media, let's say urban media, then you're going to be terrorized by the curvy beauty ideal. You're going to be terrorized by the teeny tiny waist and big booty and people lying about how they got it like that. At some point, we're going to look at these women with these teeny tiny waists and these huge butts, who look like the segmented insect thoraxes. We're going to look at them and be like, ooh, I already look at it and it feels like Chinese foot binding to me, at one point in China, the feet of girls and women were bound, and now we look at that as mutilation. And I truly believe that in 20 years, people are going to look back at this and be like, what? Like, for real? That's not, the same way that we look at the bustle or whatever. It's just going to be a fad that looks funny. But for the women who are getting those procedures right now, I feel like we overlook the fact that surgery is still dangerous. Going under general anesthesia is still dangerous. And I've just watched so many videos and read so many articles about women who've gotten butt shots in, the back of a beauty salon, and them saying basically that they don't know what's in their bodies.
What exactly did they put in the shots?
To be honest, I don't know what the fuck they put in my ass. I just know it looks good.
They just got the shots. They just wanted the ideal. So you don't know what someone injected into your body. That means you don't know what to expect in 5 years, 10 years, 20. That is unbelievable to me. They have no idea what the long-term effects are. It's so incredibly short-sighted. I mean, right now, we're seeing a generation of women who got a certain kind of breast implant that was basically they were guinea pigs for this new kind of breast implant. And now they have cancer because your body tries to attack this foreign object. And while it's trying to break down this foreign object, those particles seep into your bloodstream and now they have cancer. We don't know what the effects of all of this fat transfer and the booty shots and the hydrogel and the silicone are. We don't know. But what we do have now is women in that first generation of women who got butt shots and the implants and all of that coming out to say something went wrong. K. Michelle has been really vocal about how she thought she had lupus at one point, how she had to get it lipoed out.
I did butt, I did hips. And now I'm to the point where I've been getting tired of it for years, trying to kind of lipo. Now it's to the point where it's affecting my health. Mm-hmm. And we're thinking that the aching and everything that made me go and, get checked for lupus is due because my butt is so big and my legs are not holding it.
But she is lucky because she's rich and she can afford to go to the doctors and get the reconstructive surgery. If you are getting hydrogel shot into your ass in the back of a beauty salon, you probably do not have the money to go to Dr. Gavami or to go to Dr. Miami to get reconstructive surgery. So what's gonna happen? And it's so important not to shame these women because we need their stories. Those are cautionary tales. I opt to avoid the looking down my nose and whatever because we've got to deal with why a group of women who on average have a negative net worth are spending so much money to reconstruct their bodies. Why are we spending so much money on useless shit like waist trainers and flat tummy tees? Why are we potentially subjecting ourselves to unknown health risks? I don't believe that Black women are doing that because we're gullible and dumb. No, right? It's much deeper than that. I trust Black women to act in ways that they believe are the most rational and provide the most upside for them at any given time. And this is why it's so important for us to talk about beauty and what it is and how it's constructed and how it affects how we navigate through the world. Because when we're talking about beauty, we're not just talking about how good somebody feels when they look in the mirror. No. We're talking about how somebody is able to navigate their lives, the resources that somebody has access to. When you take a more macro look at what might drive somebody to bring a picture of their favorite Instagram model to Dr. Miami and say, I want to look like that, then we can have real discussions about, okay, so how are we going to deal with this? So I say all the time that a lot of this is about money, but really when I talk about money, what I'm really talking about is access to resources. And resources covers a wide array of stuff. So everything from male attention, and male attention is important if you're a woman because it can bring social legitimacy, it can bring financial stability, it can bring a place to stay. Like it does matter. Or it can bring a different kind of attention, the attention that you get on social media, which can also bring financial stability. It can bring actual money, employment. I mean, all of these things are why you might conform to a white supremacist male gaze, even though the white supremacist part of that is tricky, right? Because despite the fact that we in our own communities make our own ideals, those ideals are still impacted by whiteness. You know, that's why people get nose jobs and lighten their skin and all of that, right? Even if we don't want to look like a white woman, you know, we're not trying to look like Taylor Swift. But there are still ways that anti-blackness factors in to the construction of our beauty ideal. And women know this. We're taught from a very, very young age that beauty is capital, that beauty has a huge effect, an enormous influence on your social positioning. It don't matter how smart you are, what school you go to, people are going to look to you to provide the resources that we look to women for, and that is beauty. That's what you're expected to bring to the table. So what are you gonna do to try to get to beauty? You're going to subject yourself to risky cosmetic procedures. You're going to diet. You're going to starve yourself. You're going to be in the gym all of the time. So there's that. And then there's people who cannot or do not subject themselves to those sorts of body modifications, who are just beset by generalized anxiety and body dysmorphia. That pressure is super real, no matter where you are. And I really appreciated the BBC did a video on BBLs and, you know, the Instagram ideal. And I appreciated this influencer saying,
I've got to the stage where I've actually had it ready, like knowing what dates I was going. I wanted to get my bum done. I was like, look, all these Instagram girls are doing well, working with these brands, like showing off their body. As a black influencer, there's like a certain look, and I think a certain look is you have to be a figure eight, like a curvy, big boobs, big bum, to be considered as a woman. As a black woman.
And because capitalism makes everything a competition, we're now at a point where there's that intersection of the mixed race aesthetic and this curvy ideal where black women are put in a position where, like, we're told that we have to compete with women of other races. A white woman getting thick is not a threat to me because I'm not in competition with her, or an Asian woman, or a Latina woman, or whatever. But the ideal is that we are supposed to be fighting each other to get these select few men or jobs or whatever. But, like, no. And I can say no to that because that's not my job. My job is not to get likes on Instagram. But if you are a sex worker or an Instagram model or a performer or a rapper or whatever, it makes sense why you would go down that road. The problem that we have now in the age of Instagram is the rest of us suffer, right? Nobody can escape that ideal. And so the rest of us were just like, oh, I just want to get up and go work every day. Like, I just want to get up and do my job and do my best and raise my kids and hang out with my family. Now we feel the pressure to be bad bitches, you know, whereas before you could have been a slightly above average bitch. Now we all got to be bad bitches. And I have to say that I do think Instagram is to blame, but this aesthetic did not start on Instagram. K. Michelle, Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, like, I do not believe that Instagram is why they altered their bodies, but I do believe that now Instagram is to blame for the rest of us being affected because we're just scrolling and seeing those images. We can't, it's inescapable. It's the tyranny of the curvy ideal. And I was watching the Grapevine episode about, you know, the curvy ideal, whatever. And I heard Aisha, and I love Aisha, and I also love Uchechi on that freaking show. But I heard Aisha talking about how this stuff is influenced by the mainstreaming of strip club culture. Absolutely true. So not only in the past decade or decade and a half has strip club culture become just a part of mainstream culture, hip hop culture, which is now mainstream popular culture, the music, the type of dance that we like, but also it has influenced our sexual mores and our aesthetics. Or maybe I shouldn't say tyranny, it's the mainstreaming of this extreme ideal. And it's so powerful that huge businesses have been built off of it. Look at Fashion Nova. Those clothes aren't even cute. Those cheap clothes are not even cute. Fashion Nova has built this huge business off of cheap, poorly made clothes because they've stuffed a certain type of woman into them. And so 99% of the time, except for the jeans, Fashion Nova jeans are quite good, but 99% of the time, when you're buying that cheap Fashion Nova shit, you're not buying it because the clothes are cute. You're buying it because you want to look like those same two models that they use in all of those images. Do people even know what real bodies look like anymore? Like, I really think about these kids. So when I see people make certain kinds of comments on Twitter and Instagram and even YouTube, I'm like, do people know what real bodies look like anymore? And I'm talking about Gen Z. Do y'all know what natural bodies look like? Because bodies that have booties that when I was 18 were big are now small or medium. And bodies that to me look enormous are big. I'm super critical of Instagram and social media largely as platforms that perpetuate enormous harms. I recognize that so many women have been able to build careers for themselves and build businesses off of those platforms. I mean, I've made a lot of money off of Instagram. So look, it's not all bad. I just am not at a place where I believe that the prosperity of a few justifies the suffering of many. I don't think that I can say that overall it's been worth it. I know people are always looking for solutions. I don't have a solution. My solution is to use these platforms less. They are architected to keep you addicted. They are architected to keep you scrolling, and they intentionally feed you certain kinds of images because those are the images that get the most attention. But yeah, like, Instagram is bad. You know, in 15 years, the ideal is going to be something completely different. I know that that doesn't help you if you're suffering now, but that's just the truth. That's the way that these cycles go. The problem, of course, is I think a lot of the damage that we are creating right now is irreparable. And we know Facebook is evil. They are not going to do the work to minimize harm. So we're just out here trying to fend for ourselves and make it. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Go on over to Patreon, girl, and watch me talk about all sorts of stuff. The 2020 elections, friendships, sex, body dysmorphia, Jussie Smollett. It's everything. Everything is over there. So go over there and become a patron right now. Thank you so much to all of the patrons. At the end of this month, I'm going to be doing a live patrons only Q&A where you can video chat me and ask me your questions. You can send in the questions via text. We're going to have a great, little discussion with the community that we've got over there. So sign up today. Obviously, again, that's patrons only. Send me an email, leave a comment, DM me on Twitter or Instagram. Buy some merch. No, I did not wear my shirt today. I had to wash it, but buy some merch. Sign up for the email newsletter. I will see you next time. Bye.